Hello to my vegetarian girlies, it's Carla. I'm here again in my kitchen today with a crowdsourced recipe. I am making soft tofu and greens with a gingery sizzle. A lot of people wanted something with greens, vegetarian. I got a lot of people asking for tofu and a lot of quick dinner for two. So I took all of that and I wound it up into one recipe. It's got beautiful silken tofu, crispy greens. The cooking on this is super minimal so that you can lean into this caramelized, crunchy red onion ginger sauce. This is the perfect weeknight dinner. It should take half an hour. Set your timers, let's go. I'm gonna start by mixing together some black vinegar and some soy sauce. There's a teaspoon of sugar in here and I just wanna put the liquid on top of it to encourage the sugar to dissolve while I'm doing the other things. It is 2 to 1, 1 part soy to 2 parts black vinegar. There really were like quite a few versions of this recipe. Give me some comments. Are you interested in recipe development? Because I have 3 different versions of this recipe that I could share with you to see like getting it wrong in order to get it right. I have a like 3-quart pot of water that's coming up to a boil. I also have the rice cooker going. A note about silken tofu. Silken tofu is not the same thing as soft tofu. Silken can be soft, medium, firm. It has more to do with the texture than the firmness. This is great because we're not even gonna bother trying to get it crispy. We're just gonna warm it up. I'm gonna start the prep by just trimming this yu choy. You could use bok choy, would be really nice. The baby broccoli, which is sometimes called broccolette, or you just use broccoli. Some of them are really thin, but just kind of going in half lengthwise. This is gonna keep the cook time really short, but it's also going to make it easy to kind of pick up these pieces after they've been boiled for a few minutes. I like having the whole green instead of chopping it up. It looks pretty on the rice. You always want to get the thing that's going to take the longest going first. Every step in a weeknight recipe should be actively getting you closer to the moment where you're cooking. So this is fresh ginger. You need about 1 ounce of ginger. I'm gonna cut it into really thin matchsticks because I like the texture of these thin pieces in the condiment. Once I've thinly sliced them into planks, I'm just going across to get them into julienne. And you might be asking yourself, well, what happens, Carla, if I just cut a little extra ginger? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, the first draft that I did had way too much ginger. It gave the whole condiment a very like bitter undertone that was very unpleasant. So don't go crazy. If you can find a small red onion, that's great. If you want to use a shallot, that's cool. If you want to use a quarter of like a yellow onion or a white onion, that will also be delicious. Scallion, ginger and scallion, classic. And this I'm also gonna thinly slice. About 1/2 cup. All right, I'm also gonna cut up some garlic. This is gonna go in at the very end, so keep it separate because I don't want it to burn. So it's going in towards the end and no risk of being in the oil for too long. Keep them thin. The gingery sizzle is going to have some red chili flake in it, some sesame seeds, some sesame oil. The only other dry spice I'm adding is a little bit of coriander seed. This is 1/2 teaspoon. I like the brightness of this, but I also think fennel seed would be really nice. I think you could use cumin seed as well. I'm just crushing it enough to break open the seeds so that you're not gonna bite into a whole coriander. I'm just gonna leave this in my little mortar for now. I'm just loosening everything up from the grooves with my handy pastry brush. My water is boiling. I'm going to salt it pretty generously. The tofu and the greens aren't in here for very long, so this is part of seasoning them. I want to cook these crisp tender. I want them to still have texture and be nice and bright green. In my test, it took about 3 minutes to get to crisp tender. first. If you do the tofu first, then you get all these weird bits of tofu floating in the water and they stick to the greens and it's not very nice. So you want to do your greens ahead of the tofu. You will also notice that I am not plunging these greens into an ice bath, which, you know, in a restaurant style of cooking you would do to stop the cooking right away and preserve the green color. We don't do that at home on a weeknight, people. It's just not necessary. These are gonna stay really beautiful and green the entire time, I promise. And I think the easiest way to deal with soft silken tofu is cut around the label to expose the tofu. I'm not dicing it and I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just gonna spoon it in pretty big pieces right into the boiling water. These will break up a little bit further while they are cooking and warming up. So yeah, no stress at all in my book about the tofu being some bigger than others. They're all gonna come out, they're all gonna end up on the same plate, they're all gonna end up on your rice, they're all gonna be tasty. Cooking the tofu like this seasons the tofu because it's getting this like salty water bath. Another thing that it's doing is just warming the tofu up because it's coming out fridge cold. I think it also might make it just a tad firmer. I'm just letting the excess water drop off. And at this point, I just want to keep this somewhere where it's not going to get freezing cold. So I'm just going to keep it warm up here. Gingery sizzle time. I'm going to go over medium heat and I'm going to combine 3 tablespoons of neutral oil and 1 tablespoon of toasted sesame oil. Having a little saucepan like this is helpful so that the vegetables actually frizzle and sizzle in the oil instead of just sauteing. So I've got my ginger, onions, the crushed coriander, gochugaru, which is a Korean dried red chili, and about a tablespoon of sesame seeds, white, black combo. It's all good. I want to combine everything and then I'm going to give it a really big pinch of salt. Once I hear the vegetables starting to sizzle, I'm going to stir it again. And I'm actually going to throw a lid on this. Now there's a lot of steam building up in there. It's just a very fast and efficient way to get the vegetables to soften. And I want them to soften before they brown. That will make sure that they're nice and sweet and they're tender and they're not taking on color without getting cooked down a little bit first. Let me pull this off. It should be going. And now that everything is floppy, I'm gonna keep it moving and cook for probably about 6 or 7 minutes. Moderate the heat so that it's not going too fast. So just keep it medium, keep it sweet. This is just about there. Everybody is like very collapsed and frazzled and frizzled. And because this pot is retaining heat, I'm actually turning off my heat and I'm gonna add that garlic that I sliced before, stir that through, and all that's left to do now is plate it up. I'm just gonna divide the sizzle between my 2 plates. I'm doing my patented shimmy of the spoon because all of the kind of strands of the onion and the ginger get a little tangled up in each other. And those are some of the best bits. Now I have my pan that everything was browned in and there is some residual like browned bits. I'm pouring in that vinegar and soy mixture right into that pan and just using it to swirl up any little last pieces of ginger, sesame seed. I just want to make sure the sugar in it is dissolved and any little pieces of flavor that were left end up coming along. These make amazing leftovers, so if you don't finish it all tonight, keep it in the marinade and pack it up. And the tofu cold the next day that's been sitting in the sizzle all night is delicious. Same with the greens. So I'm gonna make myself a bowl with my other favorite food, rice. If you want more of that really mouth-watering chili crisp flavor experience, add a little bit of MSG. You have a lot of soft textures here. So the store-bought fried shallots or fried onion, and that just adds like a little bit of crunchiness to the top. This for me is like fantasy meatless Monday, really fast. Monday somehow is like always the hardest night of the week to make dinner. Oh, grab a joiner. Get yourself a big spoon. Soft tofu, greens, sizzle.
Looks so soft and boiled. Give me a bad YouTube video and 15 minutes and that plate is gone.
But Cosmo, we only know about good YouTube videos here.
Oh, here, of course.
When my man Cosmo says it's got boiled tofu, to some people that would sound like a bad thing, but around these parts, it's really good. This is a dish that you should make. Thank you for suggesting it. Thank you for all the ideas. Keep them coming. The brain is only as good as the ideas that are in it, so just help fill me up.